inside today. It's cold and rainy and damp outside, so we're not doing any walk-arounds. What I want to talk about today and what I wanted to share is my process, what I ended up doing with my grief and how I ended up growing it, or not growing the grief as much as finding my way through it. Donna's death tossed me into a dark, damp, emotional warehouse. I was fumbling around, falling over objects that littered my path. Memories, 30 years of things, apologizing to friends for being in that state, trying to comfort them, so I avoided my sharing. I threw myself into sort of a death cleanup. Not like Dexter cleaning up blood splatter. I was cleaning up the emotional splatter of losing Donna. None of this served to dampen my pain. It was a persona I stepped into to believe I had control. I was going to manage my grief to feel I had some control. There are 3 activities during this time that were instrumental in helping me to accept the gaping grief wound I suffered. They opened my mind. I discovered sort of that light entered that wound. If I paid close attention, if I let myself sit quietly with my raging pain, since we all grieve differently, you may have different elements and may learn different lessons. We can grow and become more of who we are during times of great pain because we sit with our sorrow. It speaks to us, just like the memories of our loved ones speaks to us. That's the time to be calm, to think, to realize, to recognize, to reflect on what we lost and have it bring comfort. My 3 activities on my grief journey were reading, writing, and community. Sort of a 3-legged stool that supported me and kept me from turning the lights off. Find your 3-legged stool. Find your things that can support you during your journey. I'm going to talk about reading in this video, what I read, why I read it, and just a little more about it. Reading about grief and loss seeped into me, into my world. Friends were sharing books with me. For me, reading, I started connecting with other human beings, other humans about their grief and loss. Since my background was, medical education and advertising, I read a lot on end of life, palliative care, hospice, which ended up leading me to learn more about grief and loss and what other writers were writing that addressed their grief. These readings were the steps I took one by one on my grief journey. It is how I moved forward. It's how I began to accumulate these sort of twigs and sticks and things to build my nest, to build my world that I was living in now, a world that was sort of torn from me. The single, I think, most important thing I read, and maybe because it was something I read very early on, or maybe I read it first, and I connected with the most, was C.S. Lewis and his essay, A Grief Observed. His words just rang true. I mean, every sentence, every word seemed to say, oh, I get that. Yeah, that's how I feel. Which is important, which is, I think, what we need to do when we're going through grief. We need to feel somebody else knows about it. Somebody else gets it. I can bring in what they've felt and seen and heard and said into my world. I knew how I was feeling, But then I was able to find through his words more of what I was feeling. It comforted me. There's a PDF link below. I think it's a great read. I think, if you have the time, read it. He just speaks so clearly. Of course, it's from the 50s, but he has something to say that I think we can learn from. As I kept reading and discovering more, there were 2 additional books, and there are a lot more that I read. Articles, magazines, I can go on and on. But I think 2 of the most significant for me were Neil Peart, who was a drummer in Rush, and he wrote about the loss of his daughter and subsequently his wife. And the book was Ghost Rider, Travels on the Healing Road. Again, it's about words. It's about how someone else in their time of loss and sorrow and grief, how they see it and how we connect with that. The other one is written by Yuyun Lee, Where Reason Ends, and it's a beautiful story about the suicide of a son, her son, and the discussion she has with it. Her words are just off the chart beautiful. And again, too many to mention, too numerous of what I've read, but I think those are important, and links are below. I think the overarching, message I want to share and what I'm trying to say here, probably not too well, is connections to others through words. Connection is at the heart of our humanity. It's what makes us human. Words on a page, words are like hugs from the writer. I became more human. At least my grief did. It didn't become this abstract thing in the back of my head, this hurt. It took on a humanity for me. Others' words of loss and sorrow and grief and pain gave me a better understanding of what I felt. I expanded my language of loss. I integrated their words and images into mine, into my writing and sharing. I guess I became more comfortable and articulate in my loss and sorrow. Though it's always present, it doesn't go away. But it ended up being there with me, something that lives within me that I'm connected to. In a positive way at times and in a horrible way at other times. In the end, of this piece on reading and sort of the start of connection, I can only give a full-throated and just full-on strong recommendation to read about grief. As much as you can get your hands on. I know it's going to be hard. I think when we read, we learn. Read with great curiosity. Read fearlessly. Read to understand. Read to question yourself. Let this reading about other people's loss help raise questions for yourself. I bathe myself in understanding through the eyes of others. I walk their journey. As you walk with them, your path and journey will unfold, will create vistas for you to see insight, self-awareness. That's what we hope to come from through a loss, this self-awareness. You will see love you had, love that you have new, still present. That love is still present. It may become less suffocating. We heal from the inside. but not without help from the outside. Integrate what others share, what they say, their words about loss and sorrow. It does help so much. Because the memories in that dark warehouse will come into focus. They will be lit. And the light will allow you to see better, for it to enter you and you to grow. In the end, read. It's fundamental. Not very fun with grief. And subscribe, leave a comment, ask me anything. You know, the usual close. Thank you all. Next coming up is we're going to talk about community and how important that was. Or maybe it'll be writing. We'll see. Thank you.